Welcome back to Be Inspired from Life. A foolish man speaks not because something needs to be said, but because he needs to be seen. You'll notice it immediately. The room doesn't ask for his voice, yet he fills it anyway. He talks about what he's done, what he's going to do, who he knows, what he deserves. Not because it adds value, but because silence makes him uncomfortable. And that discomfort tells the truth. When a man is secure, he doesn't rush to announce his worth. He lets it stand on its own. See, ego is loud because it's fragile. It needs constant feeding. It needs applause, agreement, attention. And the moment it doesn't get those things, it panics. That's why a foolish man over-explains, over-promises, and overreacts. He thinks volume equals strength. He thinks confidence means domination of conversation. But real confidence doesn't interrupt. It doesn't shout. It doesn't perform. It's steady, it's grounded. It knows who it is, so it doesn't need to convince anyone else. There's a difference between speaking with purpose and speaking for approval. A wise man speaks to clarify, to guide, to uplift. A foolish man speaks to impress. He wants to win the moment, even if it costs him the future. He wants to look powerful now, even if it exposes his insecurity later. That's why his words often arrive before his actions. He tells you what he's going to become instead of quietly becoming it. He announces the work before doing the work. And life has a way of humbling men who try to collect rewards before they've earned them. You've seen this play. The man who says, "Trust me," more than once. The man who reminds you of his status instead of letting his character show it. The man who has to tell you how smart he is, how dangerous he is, how important he is. Think about it. When someone truly possesses those qualities, do they need to declare them? Lions don't explain they're kings of the jungle. Mountains don't introduce themselves before they stand tall. Strength doesn't ask for permission to be felt. A foolish man believes talking makes him larger. In reality, it shrinks him, because every unnecessary word is a window into his insecurity. Every boast is a confession. Every attempt to dominate the conversation reveals a fear of being overlooked, ignored, or forgotten. And that fear controls him more than any external enemy ever. He's not free. He's chasing validation like a thirsty man chasing water that never satisfies. Now understand this. Silence isn't weakness. Silence is discipline. Silence is confidence that doesn't need witnesses. The most powerful people in the room are often the ones listening, observing, choosing their words carefully. They understand that speech is a tool, not a reflex. When they speak, it lands. It carries weight. Because it's backed by thought, by experience, by restraint. They don't waste language trying to inflate themselves. They let presence do the work. A foolish man mistakes attention for respect. He thinks being noticed means being valued. But respect is earned when your words align with your actions, when your promises match your results, when your character remains company, insistent whether the lights are on or off. That kind of respect doesn't come from talking more. It comes from needing to talk less. There's also a deeper danger here. When ego drives speech, truth gets sacrificed. The foolish man will exaggerate. He'll twist facts. He'll tell half stories that make him look better. Not always out of malice, but out of insecurity. And over time, he starts believing his own performance. That's when he loses touch with reality. That's when growth stops, because you can't improve what you refuse to see clearly. A man who wants to evolve must learn to pause before he speaks and ask himself one simple question: am I saying this to add value or to protect my ego? That pause is where wisdom lives. That pause is where self-mastery begins. Because the moment you stop needing to prove yourself, you become someone worth listening to. Words should come from alignment, not anxiety, from clarity, not comparison, from purpose, not pressure. When a man speaks from that place, he doesn't need to dominate the room. The room adjusts to him. People lean in. They listen. Because authenticity has a gravity that performance can never imitate. So if you want to rise above foolishness, start here. Speak less, observe more. Let your results interrupt the silence for you. Let your consistency answer the questions your ego used to shout. because the man who no longer needs to announce his power is the man who truly has it. A foolish man is quick to point the finger, but slow to look in the mirror. Something goes wrong, and before the dust even settles, he's all red. He found a villain. It's the system, it's the people, it's the timing, it's the world, anybody but him. And in that moment he feels relief, because blame is comfortable. Blame lets you off the hook. Blame says, you didn't fail, something failed you. But that comfort is a trap, because every time a man refuses responsibility, he hands his power away. Listen closely to how a man explains his struggle. Glares, and you'll hear exactly where he stands in life. The foolish man tells stories where he is always the victim and never the cause. Life keeps happening to him, people keep holding him back, circumstances keep conspiring against him, and maybe some of that is true. Life isn't fair and obstacles are real. But wisdom isn't built on fairness, wisdom is built on ownership. The moment you say, S is on me, something changes. You stop being at the mercy of events and start becoming a force within them. Blame feels like protection, but it weakens you. Because if someone else is responsible for your anger, your failure, your frustration, then someone else controls your life. Think about that. If your peace depends on how others behave, you will never be at peace. If your progress depends on perfect circumstances, you will never move forward. A foolish man waits for the world to adjust to him. A wise man adjusts himself and rises anyway. You'll hear the foolish man say things like, "They made me angry," or "I wouldn't have done that if they hadn't pushed me." That's a dangerous sentence, because it suggests that his emotions are owned by other people, that someone else holds the emote control to his reactions. And a man who cannot control his reactions can never control his destiny. Self-mastery begins the moment you stop outsourcing your emotions to the world around you. Taking responsibility doesn't mean blaming yourself for everything or ignoring injustice. It means recognizing the one thing you always control, how you respond. You control your effort. You control you. Discipline. You control your attitude. You control the standards you live by. And when you focus on those things, something powerful happens. You stop wasting energy on excuses and start investing it in solutions. A foolish man argues with reality. He says, "It shouldn't be this way." A wise man says, "It is this way, now what?" That shift in thinking is the difference between stagnation and growth. Life will never stop testing you. People will disappoint you, plans will fall apart. But every challenge carries a question, and that question is always the same: who are you going to be in this moment? Blame dodges that question. Responsibility answers it. There's a strange pride in victimhood that traps many men. It gives them moral high ground without demanding effort. It allows them to complain loudly while changing nothing. But strength doesn't come from being right. It comes from being effective. And effectiveness requires accountability. The man who takes responsibility doesn't waste time explaining why things are hard. He uses that time to become harder to break. When you stop blaming others, you reclaim your agency. You stop waiting for apologies that may never come. You stop needing validation from people who don't understand your journey. You become self-directed, grounded, focused, and that kind of man is dangerous in the best way, because he cannot be manipulated by chaos or controlled by circumstance. Responsibility is not a burden, it's a privilege. It says, I have the power to change, even if the situation isn't your fault. The response is still your responsibility. And that truth is freeing, because it means no matter how you started, you get to choose how you finish. So the next time life tries to knock you off balance, don't ask who's to blame, ask who's in control, because the man who owns his reactions owns his future, and that is the moment he stops being a victim and starts becoming unbreakable. A foolish man lets his emotions sit in the driver's seat and wonders why his life keeps crashing. He feels something, and before that feeling has time to settle, it's already turned into words. Anger becomes accusation. Frustration becomes insult. Jealousy becomes sarcasm. He speaks in the heat of the moment and then spends the rest of his time trying to explain, apologize, or repair what never needed to be said in the first place. And the truth is, it's not the emotion that hurts him. It's the lack of control over it. Emotions are natural. They show up uninvited. You don't choose when they arrive, but you always choose whether they get to speak for you. A foolish man doesn't understand that difference. He believes authenticity means expressing everything he feels instantly and loudly. But real maturity isn't about expression, it's about regulation. It's about knowing that not every thought deserves a microphone and not every feeling deserves a response. You can hear it in his language. I just had to say something. That's just how I am. I was angry, so I spoke my mind. Those aren't explanations, they're excuses. They shift responsibility from the man to the moment. But moments don't speak, people do. And when you allow temporary emotions to dictate permanent words, you trade long-term respect for short-term relief. A man who speaks emotionally is predictable. Push the right button, and he reacts. Say the wrong thing, and he explodes. And anything predictable can be controlled. That's why emotional restraint is power. When you pause, when you breathe, when you choose silence over reaction, you become unpredictable in the best way. You stop being easy to provoke. You stop being easy to manipulate. And people feel that strength, even if they can't explain it. Think about the moments you regret most. They're rarely the times you stayed quiet. They're the times you said too much, too fast, with too little thought. Words spoken in emotion don't just disappear when the feeling fades, they linger. They change how people see you. They reshape relationships. They close doors that discipline could have kept open. A foolish man doesn't see that in the moment. He only sees the release. But wisdom looks beyond the moment and chooses the future. Restraint is not suppression, it's strategy. It's knowing that silence can be louder than shouting and patience can be sharper than anger. The strongest men in history weren't the ones who reacted to every insult. They were the ones who could stand firm without need to prove anything. They understood that dignity isn't defended by volume, but by control. A foolish man believes speaking his emotions makes him honest. A wise man understands that honesty without wisdom is reckless. There's a time to speak, and there's a time to hold your tongue. Knowing the difference is a skill, and like any skill, it must be practiced. That practice begins with awareness, recognizing the surge of emotion, and choosing not to become it. When you master this, something changes inside you. You stop being pulled into unnecessary conflict. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop leaking energy through arguments that lead nowhere. Instead, you conserve your strength. You become calm where others are chaotic, focused where others are reactive. And that calm becomes intimidating because it signals self-command. People respect the man who can remain composed under pressure, not because he's cold, but because he's disciplined. They trust his words more because they know he doesn't waste them. When he speaks, it's measured, intentional, rooted in clarity, not impulse, and that makes his voice carry weight. The world will always try to provoke you. Someone will test your patience. Someone will question your worth. Someone will misunderstand your silence. But none of that matters if you understand this one truth. Your emotions are yours to feel, not yours to unleash. You don't owe every feeling a reaction, and you don't owe every person an explanation. So pause, breathe, let the moment pass. Let the emotion cool. Then decide if your words will build or burn. Because the man who controls his tongue controls his life, and the one who masters that discipline can walk through any storm without losing himself. Thank you so much for watching. If this video inspired you, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to be inspired from life for more motivational content. And remember, no matter where you are in life, you have the power to change your future. See you in the next video.